Welcome to the Busy Guy Show. My name is Vince LoCascio, and I've got Steve Decker, author of Cambridge Street here. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. It's the story of an immigrant family's story of mobsters, murder, and revenge in the Chicago's Roaring '20s.
Yes.
A lot of subjects covered there.
A lot of subjects. There's a lot to talk about from the Roaring '20s. A lot of things unsaid about our ancestors, our Italian ancestors, and immigrants from all nationalities in that day.
Okay, and the book is inspired by true events?
It is. There's 5 or 6 episodes that I put in the book that are based on true events from my family, my grandparents, my mother, my aunts, and uncles. Yes.
Okay. I have to be fair and say that I did read the book and loved it.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that.
Well, it was inspiring because of my heritage and many customs and things that I saw people grow up. And it's true. It's truly about Sicilians immigrating to Chicago.
Yeah.
Which along the way I found out. Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about it. But they've also immigrated to New York, Boston, San Francisco, anywhere there was work.
Very true. Very true. New Orleans too, and Kansas City and other places. A lot of immigrants came here between 1880 and 1930, this mass migration to America. But did you know that of the 7 or 8 million Italians who came here at that time, half of them repatriated and went back to Italy because life was tough here. Life was really tough. And that's what the book is about. It's about the struggle of people from that time period. And my characters came to Chicago just at the dawning of the Roaring '20s. I placed the book in Chicago because that's where these events really happened. Plus, it takes place in Little Sicily. In Chicago, also known as Little Hell, highest murder rate in the city at that time, and that's really where it took place.
Yeah, well, in the book it talks about how they weren't getting help from anybody. They certainly weren't getting help from the police,
right?
And a lot of them left Italy Sicily because of the mob, the mafia, life controlling a lot of them, and then they found it here again. So there was a lot of, as they say, the cards were stacked against them.
Yeah, so true. Only they left Sicily, and I want to be clear, I write about the struggle and the bravery of these immigrants as seen through the eyes of fictional characters. It's not a biography, these are fictional characters, but the events are accurate. Yeah, they left Italy because of mafia involvement, overtaxation, under-services from the government. They get to Chicago, what do they have? The same thing, only now they don't speak the language.
Yeah. I did notice, in the story was very interesting, the fact that the family was saying our farm is not big enough to feed the family anymore. And you could prosper over here.
Yes.
And a lot of the work that they took was work that nobody else would take. If you commented a little bit about
that. They took what they could get.
Types of jobs.
Yeah, they took what they could get. My main character went to talk to someone about working in a meatpacking house, and he said, well, you're not going to work here. You're going to go work in the stockyards. And he went to the stockyards, and he had the most back-breaking, dirty job that he had. But he had to do it. They had to take whatever they could get for survival. Things were tough. They were not wanted here. They were not welcomed. But they were brought here to dig the ditches, kill the animals,
build the railroads.
Yeah, but again, they were not wanted here. The government wanted to stop them from coming and provided very little services. And it's pretty graphic the way I laid it out in the book. The city of Chicago and the lack of services, and the police, just like in Italy, the corrupt police. And, it was an amazing time period. It was an amazing era in the history of the United States and of Chicago. I don't get into it too much, but think about it. 1 million soldiers coming home from World War I, no jobs. Women got the right to vote, finally, thank God, but it changed their persona. It really changed everything from the way they dressed to the way they lived. Then Prohibition was at 1919, and then it created an enormous criminal class of people centered here in New York, in the big cities.
It talked about, as they say, you do have to read the book to find out, but it talked about how people were making bathtub gin to sell back to the
Yes.
to the bootleggers.
Yes, and that's actually that was based on a gang in Chicago along Taylor Street, Taylor and Halstead. They had a warehouse, but they didn't have they didn't brew their own booze. They didn't distill their own liquor. They had literally thousands of immigrant families making bathtub gin, bathtub whiskey, and they had runners. They would go pick it up and bring it back to the warehouse, and these guys would sell it out of the warehouse. It was filthy stuff from what I read. I mean, it had, you name it, I mean, it had rodents in it and bugs, and it was just terrible
Drunk
stuff.
rodents.
Drunk, very drunk rodents. Yeah, but it's based on a true story, and I did include that in the book. Yeah.
And this is your first book.
It is my first book, yes. It is my first book.
Is there any books that inspired you, or that you like, that are similar? Or
Well, I love a lot of the American authors, and especially the ones that are write historical fiction like this. So Eric Larson and, The Devil in the White City. Laura Hildebrand, she's wrote a couple of great historically accurate novels. Irving Stone, the master, I love him. Jack London. I really like the American authors going as far back as it can go.
Just to get back to them, why did, we kind of just touched on it, but why did a lot of them leave? Because there was opportunity here, right? I mean, they were getting letters from people, cousins that were already here.
Yeah, but it was, they expected much more. The saying, the streets are paved with gold, not true. Not true at all. So the immigrants came here, sponsored or not. Some had jobs, some didn't. They were laborers. They came here really for a better life. They came here for an opportunity. As I lay out in the book, it wasn't really about them. They laid themselves down through sacrifice and bravery for their kids. It was to get the kids a better life and the grandkids. And that's really why they came. And I said a moment ago, half of them went back to Italy because it was just too tough.
Yeah, I never realized that. Not that I'm an expert on it or anything, but I didn't realize a lot of them did go back.
Yeah, most people don't know that. And another thing most people don't know was that in 1924, our government passed something called the Immigration Act through Congress. I read the transcripts of the floor debates. It's unbelievable the way they would talk about our family.
Yeah.
And they passed this act primarily to stop Italians from coming here. And Italian immigration went down, decreased by 90% at that time. They stopped other countries too, but it was aimed, from what I've read, at the Italians.
Well, shame on them because, many of them served in the wars for this country, and many
Yes.
lost their lives
Yes.
for this country.
That's right. Yeah, I want to say something about that. And another thing people may not know, Italian descendants, so second generation, first generation, made up the largest number of soldiers, Italian Americans in World War II, the largest number. So even though they were discriminated against, had a really tough time, starved in some cases, they stepped up for the country. And it was just a great thing for
And
them.
something we talked about, before the show was, I don't know if it's coincidence or if it's fact or what, but it seems like the majority of the Sicilians that you meet here are from towns either from Palermo or around it. There's not too many that I meet Sicilians that are from, other parts of the island.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know exactly why. Maybe I guess it's the population center, probably. I think my grandfather was from Bagheria, which is a suburb
I
of
don't Bagheria.
suburb of Palermo. My grandmother was from a little village called Sambuca. Yeah, and actually they met and married here in Chicago. But again, this is not a biography. It's not their story word for word.
Well, you mentioned that about how, because I did ask you, and I'll ask you again, why you went with fiction and not truth, because then with fact, not fiction. I'll try to get this right. You went with fiction and not fact because fact you have to be a lot more accurate.
Well, you have to be more accurate, and I really just wanted to let my imagination fly and just let it come out, and that's really what I did. With nonfiction, I know you have to do, notes and research, and I did a lot of research. I mean, it took me 2 years to write the book, and I did a lot of research, but I still wanted it to have a fictional basis. I wanted a fictional family to tell the story so that I could personally be more creative with the characters.
And you certainly were. I mean,
Thank you.
adjectives and the I gotta tell you, the first maybe 3 pages is all adjectives, but it's just, it depicts a beautiful picture for you and a clear picture of what was going on.
I hope so. Thank you.
Especially with the farms and the family and things like that. So the majority of them, probably all of them, came by boat.
They came by boat.
Which was quite an adventure.
Yeah, they came by boat. Now, that's another thing about the book. My characters get on the boat in Palermo, and they get off the train in Chicago at Union Station. I didn't want to do the crossing. It's been done. I don't want to get into that. I didn't want to tell that part. I feel it's already been told. I wanted them to come from a farm in Sicily and come to a big urban American center and be awestruck, and they were, as you read.
Yeah. And now, with the internet and the websites, it's amazing what you could find out. The names of the ships, the manifests, your ancestry, things like that, which leads me to a quote from the book. Your family can be traced back 2 centuries in Sicily. In America, they see you as uneducated, lazy, and violent.
True.
So, A, there's a lot for people to find out about their ancestry. But B, if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, that's a quote from the book from when the main character, Paulo, is being interviewed by a family friend who has a meat packing house. And Paulo is just a naive farmer, really, and this guy's trying to straighten him out, and that's what he said. It doesn't matter. Here, you're considered lazy, violent, ignorant, and more. He's really telling him the truth. He's telling him the way it was.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how it was.
And to bring it up again, the language barrier. A lot of them, they just, they were told, this is what you do. You shovel this over here and move it over there every day, and that's your job. But the English thing was big because they were happy to send their kids to school.
Yes.
To learn English.
Yes. They did it. They did it for the kids. I mean, they just did it for the kids. And my grandparents, they had 7 or 8 kids, and they all turned out to be great people, wonderful citizens, achievers. But they came from
You turned out okay.
So far I'm all right. They started with real humble beginnings. I mean, really humble. They were, you see the cover of the book. They lived in the 4th floor of a tenement building just like that one. That's where they lived, and there was a bunch of them. Again, for the kids, and my family, I know a lot of families don't, but my family, my mother, my 4 aunts, my uncle, they spoke Italian. They spoke Sicilian at home. They spoke English out of home, but my grandparents, my grandfather especially, he hardly spoke a word of English and lived to be 90 years old here. My grandmother spoke some, but they were in this enclave, this group of Sicilians, and that's the way it was, and they were happy with that.
That was kind of my verbiage, but it was kind of cool that they stuck together as people from their towns.
Yep.
And their relatives and their cousins. So that they did feel like besides your immediate family, a large family.
It really was, and it was a really beautiful thing, and we're getting away from that more and more. But these immigrants that came here, it's all, for them the 2 things that really come to mind: family and their faith. Those were the 2 things that held them together, and man, they stuck together like glue. And faith was just a hugely important part of their life.
And to put a little light on the conditions. I mean, the medical couldn't afford it. They didn't know as we growing up, there was a lot of old traditional things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they showed in one of the episodes of The Godfather where they put the glass on the kid's stomach.
Yep.
It was supposed to pull the pain out or whatever it was, but
it works.
Yeah, a lot of those things, and there's some about that in the book as well.
Yeah.
The music was always there. You talk about that.
I do talk about music, especially when they're in Sicily, the traditional Sicilian songs. I didn't put any music into the second half of the book. If I do a rewrite, there will be music because music was a big part of it. But a bigger part than music was the food.
Yeah.
Their food. I mean, and that food is fantastic. It's just the best. And I bring food into the first chapter.
I was hungry after reading the book, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bring it into the first chapter, and I try to carry it through the whole book. And it's important. It was great food. No one got turned away. No one was hungry. And there was plenty to eat. And if there's a stranger or a new arrival in town, pull up a chair.
Yeah.
Pull up a chair and have some of this great pasta or chicken or pizza or whatever they made.
If you want to talk a little bit maybe about how, we talked about how they were proud to speak Italian, but there was certain trains of thought that don't speak Italian, be American on the street because you're going to get treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
No, I think that's true.
It's true.
They spoke English on the street. I mean, I have one uncle, nothing to do with the book, but I have an uncle who had an Irish name for when he would go on job interviews. He was not Irish, he was Italian.
He didn't look like a Pat O'Malley?
No, not exactly. But yeah, it was it was a tough time for Italian immigrants. It was a really tough time. I mean, the Irish had it tough. Everyone had it tough. The Italians, there was groundswell against them because, like they even said in the Senate, these people are dirty, they're violent. And I don't know if you know this little-known fact of history, the largest mass lynching in the history of the United States was in New Orleans, and it was 8 Sicilians who were lynched simultaneously while the sheriff watched and agreed with it, and they did nothing wrong.
I did read that somewhere, but yeah,
it's amazing.
Sad chapter.
Yeah, sad chapter.
And then how about they talked about the holidays, putting all the food out. What about the courtship? How
yeah.
It's not going to ruin the book or anything, but how somebody wants to meet somebody else.
I had fun with that.
I had a lot
of fun with that. And two of the characters are really attracted to each other, and they want to get together. They want to see each other, but they had to find an intermediary who could approach the father of the girl, and so they got the priest, and he went in there, but real strict. I mean, it was a 2-hour, I think, questioning of this young man by her father until he was absolutely certain that he was not mafia and he was a good man and he was, his whole family, and it was strict. And even when they went out, they had an entourage. The people following them, like the famous scene in The Godfather when Michael and what was her name, Apollonia or something, with all the old ladies walking behind. Very strict. And my brother, who just finished living in Sicily for 3 months, said it's still like that over there. It's strict.
Speaking of, have you been?
I've not been to Sicily. I've been to Italy. I was stationed, in fact, with military in northern Italy for 3.5 years.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for saying that. And then I've been back, and I love Italy. My next trip will be Sicily. I want to go to Sicily for at least a month.
It truly is its own country.
I can't wait to go.
I don't know if it's myth, but they said General Patton wanted to make it a state because it was perfect strategic, military.
A United States?
Yeah. Why not? Hawaii is that far away.
It sounds like Patton.
They probably drove him out, but yeah. I'm not counting on it.
I know they still celebrate Liberation Day in Sicily, which was the day that we threw the Nazis out of Sicily. That's still a holiday in Sicily.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, out of all these hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of good came out of it. A lot of beautiful families.
Yes.
People successful in government and law, film, music and sports. A lot of things that people need to be reminded of.
Well, yes, that's so true. The background of the book is that I made notes. I was taking care of my mother in her last days, 93 years old, the last of the clan, and talking a lot and making notes. And as she got sicker, I stopped making notes. Then she passed, and I helped rearrange the family over the next few months. And when I came back to my keyboard, I knew the story that I wanted to write, and the story was of the struggle of immigrants, of the bravery and the sacrifice of immigrants as seen through the eyes of a fictional family. That's the book I set out to write, and it took me 2 years to write it, but I'm very happy with the results, and I'm so happy when I get feedback and reviews and comments from you and others too. It really, I told you this morning, it's made my day.
I'm telling you, it was a treat. totally for me because of the similar heritage. But I think most people would enjoy it as a book. It's I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
How was the process of writing and publishing, especially since it was your first?
Well, Google and the internet is a great tool for everything. So anything I wondered about, I Googled it, and then I cross-checked and I cross-referenced. The writing of it was a pleasure to write it. I mean, it was really a pleasure. To put certain elements in the beginning of the book, to carry them through to the last pages. And, sometimes, I'll tell you the truth, sometimes I wrote with a box of Kleenex next to me because it was so emotional, some of it. And to put it on paper and then, to send it out into the world. It's like any kind of art, I think. A musician who writes a great composition, or a sculptor, or a painter, or a writer, it's a form of art, and you send it out and you hope people will like it, and then you get reviews back. I have one review that I just love from someone I never met. It's on Amazon. It's a woman, and she said that Cambridge Street is an amazing story, beautifully written. That's
nice.
Great. Thank you. I love that.
Well, you do say too, a big part of why you want to do it, and you said before, is because people need to know these stories, otherwise they're going to be forgotten.
Well, that's so true. And I talked to the younger generation about what happened with these immigrants from the early 1900s. They have no idea. Yeah. But they all can tell you who's in The Godfather, what happened with the Goodfellas and the Sopranos, and all the criminals represent probably less than 1% of Italian immigrants and descendants. The 99+%, they're being forgotten. Mm-hmm. That's why I think this book is so important, because it really tells the story of what those people went through to come here, to stay here, to raise their children as Americans.
Any advice for anybody? Millions have these stories, similar or close, but advice for writing books or getting their word out.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Sit down and write. Sit down and write. Just that's it. Writers write. They write. Doesn't have to be great. In fact, there's a saying I picked up in the writer circles that great for a writer is the enemy of good. And writers continually try to make their work better, 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 and they're overthinking it, they're overwriting it. Write it out. It doesn't matter if you have a computer. Jack London, one of our best and most prolific authors, wrote with a pencil on a legal pad.
Is that right?
That's what he did. And his rule was wherever he was, on board his ship, at his farm, on a train, whatever it was, he wrote 1,000 words a day. That's what he wrote. And when you read what he wrote, how he changed American writing, it's phenomenal. Stephen King's rule is 2,000 words a day. He writes for 90 days straight. That's 180,000 words. This, by the way, is 94,000 words. It took me 2 years, so I'm okay with that.
It only took me 2 days to read it. I thoroughly love it. I know. Well, where is it available? Amazon, you said?
Yeah. I'm going to soon hopefully have it into Barnes & Noble, I hope. But right now it's available on Amazon. You get a copy on Amazon or Kindle. Yeah. You'll see me probably at some festivals as well. I was just recently at the Oakley Festival where I signed a ton of books. I was at Printers Row Lit Fest, another ton of books.
I'll talk a little bit about how you went to Casa Italia, which definitely needs a shout out. I mean, there's a whole Sicilian museum there.
Yeah. For those who don't know about it, the Casa Italia in Stone Park, you should go there. It has a Sicilian museum. They have events there. They had the I.A. Literati, which is Italian-American writers, which I spoke to a couple of months ago. Great events, bocce tournaments, food events, and it's just they had a film series last year that they showed, I think 4 or 5 Italian movies, one a week and it was great. It was great. Great people, friendly people.
And a shout out to a couple people, Dominic Candeloro, who puts his heart and soul into it, and he does. I believe it's in place now, but an endowment at Loyola University for studying Italian ancestry and history in Chicago.
Yeah, he does a great job, and he heads up the library over there too in a lot of the events. And they're always looking for volunteers.
Yeah. Also, to mention that for real Sicilian festival, the Maria Santissima Laurentana Festival, it's on Labor Day, and it's held at Niles, run by Joe Camarda, a great man, and a past guest on this show.
Great. Yeah, I hope to be in that festival, and anybody who sees me there, please come to the display I have if I'm there, and I'd love to sign a book for who's ever there. And I think, I really think it's a book that I think everybody will love it. Of course, I wrote it, so of course I think that. But I've had a lot of people tell me that they're going to hold it for their grandchild, or the grandson when he gets old enough, or the granddaughter, because it is, well, it is a little bit violent, of course, and there's some sex scenes in there.
Well, that happened. I mean,
it really happened. But it's culturally accurate. It really tells the story of what those people went through. And that was my goal and my hope for the book.
Okay, and then you're talking about maybe a movie. So as long as I get one of the parts of the movie, that's all that matters.
Well, that's a big dream. I mean, I think it'd be a great movie.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. Here's the traditional busy guy cannoli.
Oh, thank you. Really, I know you're busy.
I am a busy guy.
Now you got to get out of here.
Actually, it's all smoke and mirrors. I'm really not that busy. But I do got to leave. So
okay.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Steve Decker, Cambridge Street.
Cambridge Street, yep.
Salud. All right, sorry to leave you hanging here, but I'm going to...
I know you got to go. It's all right. I'm going to eat these cannolis.
All right, God bless. Salud.
Thanks again.
Chin down.
We're fighters, Italians are fighters, and we have passion, and we take great pride in our work. I truly believe that if I weren't Italian and I didn't have my parents, who are the ultimate Italians, as role models, I really don't believe I would ever have reached my goal. I'm an Italian American, and I am so proud of it.
The Italian American heritage. Live it, love it, celebrate it.
I just shown a gentleman by the name of Nick Pappas, who was one of my first jobs, worked for him, and I've spent a long time trying to find him or his family just to make contact, share some memories. So if anybody out there remembers him or knows how to get a hold of him or his family, send me an email at busyguy.co, and I'd love to hear from, like I say, either him or his family. He used to go up and down the alleys selling produce, mostly in the Austin district area in the city. And I'm just taking a good advantage of the show that I have to send that word out. If anybody can get a hold of me, I would love to hear from him or his family. His name was Nick Pappas, and as you can see on his truck, it said, "Ma, grab your bag, here comes Nick." So
the cooking show is about cooking, but it is about the Italian culture and transmitting the Italian culture through the times from Italy, the immigrants that came here, and how it transcended, how it permeated the American culture. Italian culture is one of the greatest cultures in the world. I'm Italian and proud to be Italian American.
The Italian American heritage. Live it, love it, celebrate it.